Hey, what's up everybody? This is Josh with Schmitty's Modworks, and today we're going to look at wiring in Nerf Rival Nemesis. Now, I've been selling quite a few of the little wiring kits in my store, and always, get a ton of questions about how this goes together, which wires go where, and stuff like that. And there are some pretty good mod guides on there, but I just figured I'd do a real quick one just so we could see, how this applies with the little kit that you're getting. And I've already pre-done some of the work here just so we're not spending a ton of time. Obviously, we can see we've got our switch here epoxied in place, and then we have our other firing switch up here held in place by the out of darts switch mount, which is really awesome. Saves a lot of time, and yeah, I've probably used a couple hundred of those things at this point. So if you kind of look down at our switch here, you can kind of get a general idea of where that sits or where I choose to sit it. You can definitely make little adjustments if you feel like, but lots of room down here to loop our wires around. So that's kind of part of why I do that there. And I also typically don't use the out of darts mount kit down here just because it takes just a small little bit of epoxy putty. And then if we go back to our flywheels, we'll see that we already have all of our wires on all of our motors in here, just to, again, for the sake of time. But if we look at our flywheel cage here, we'll notice our negative is on this side, positive on this side, and then I just typically go from this post down to the other one, wrap it around it, solder it, and then come out this way. And this just kind of gives me a chance to tuck wires down here, get them out of the way nice and easily. I'm actually going to go ahead and do that right now, and I do have a tripod sitting next to me, so I don't have the most advanced video setup, so I do apologize for any bouncing or anything like that that becomes distracting, and hopefully we don't make any of you ill in the process. You'll probably also notice, looking at this feeder motor, it's got some slots in it. Did have a customer ask to do some upgraded motors, so we're putting in an upgraded motor there for him. Get a little bit better rate of fire out of this baby when it's all done. All right, there we go. We kind of got our wires tucked out of the way there. And just for clarification, this wire coming from our negative flywheels is the longest black wire that you're going to see in your kit, and then the red wire is the longest red wire that you will see in your kit. And then if we go back to our firing switch, there's a red and a black wire that are both quite short. They will go here in this arrangement. And then there is another black wire that is just slightly longer than this one, which will go down in the negative on our feeder motor. And then the next longest, or the second shortest red wire rather, goes on the positive on our feeder motor, which is on this side. And then that will actually wrap around. And I kind of cut out this little chunk of plastic right here just to give myself a nice little spot for this to kind of go down there. Kind of holds things in place inside that post there. And that's just kind of how I've been running with that. And then that will just kind of wrap around and go right here. So let's go ahead and get that on there real quick. Get that out of my way. Oop, sorry for the bump. Figured that was going to happen. All right. So most of these wires should just be a little bit long. Gives you a chance to trim them back to where they need to be. So just so they're not too short. All of my switch posts have already got some solder on them, so we just have to get our wire ends here. Just makes life a bit easier doing it that way. And you'll also get some little chunks of heat shrink with it as well. The joints do stay pretty separate, but it's just good to hold them in place just in case. And yes, out of darts kit is PLA, but I do like my little aim and flame. It's just nice and quick. Sweet, so there is our first one right there. And now we're gonna go back to our negatives. coming off of, oh, there we go. Coming off of our feeder motor here. We're going to strip a decent amount of that off just because. And then this is gonna I kind of tuck this back over here. So we'll get a little chunk of that. You can use a knife or get your snips in there, kind of get that started as well. Peel that back. This is wrapped around there nice and tight. It should just kind of hang in place there. And we'll go back. Solder that up real good. And you also get some chunks of heat shrink that are a little bit longer. This one was other ones, and I have been using those for these joints. Alright, so this will just kind of tuck in here and again kind of come back through and stop. So I kind of get a mark right here. Bring that back. Get our negative here. And one thing to remember while you're doing this, get your heat shrink on there before you do this joint. Done that a few times. It's like, oh, darn it. It's not a huge deal, but just nice to have it on there so you can come back right back over our joint. So that basically just completed the negative side of our wiring right there. And this will go straight to our battery at that point. So let's go ahead and tuck this in here. Kind of tuck this down and around. This will kind of loop up, go down in that joint, and then all of that just kind of stays just nicely tucked over here, which I really like, kind of getting out of the way and keeping neat. Now we're gonna go ahead and get this one started. And so same thing with our positive. Coming from our motor, it'll kind of wrap through here, kind of get a spot. Again, make sure you get your heat shrink before you solder this guy together. I'm about to need to get my new roll out because this is the last little bit of solder from this roll. That will do. Alright. Tuck that in there. Tuck that in, and there you go, nice and tight. So this is going to go back down to our row switch that is running from the switch to the flywheel motors, and then that splices off and then provides power into the firing switch, which is here, right? And then this goes back to the positive on your feeder motor, and then your negative just collects into your negative line running back from our flywheel motors. So let's go ahead, we'll get, and this will be the line, this will go straight to our battery, so we'll loop it around. And if you can, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I kind of get rid of some of the plastic right here just so that I've got a kind of a nice little channel there. There's also a little bit that I will chunk out right here just so that the wiring can lay down against that shell really clean without kind of getting away or getting in the way of that post there. So see how that really just tucks away super nice, which is great. And then out of darts has left this nice little channel right here for us to tuck some wiring underneath. So you can kind of just twist that, and even if it doesn't lay down perfectly flat, our firing trigger goes over that and keeps that down, and hasn't really caused any problems for me. So, and then we're going to grab this other red wire here, come back at that through the other direction, back through that little channel that we've created. All right, now see how that kind of bubbled up, but again, our trigger will just go right over the top of that and don't cause any issues. All right, sorry for the bounce again. And so this will just loop back around and trim that just a hair. And there we go, here's the full roll. Heat shrink. I'm doing this around my little tripod, so this is interesting as far as handholds go. I got that on there. All right, get our heat shrink up. Alright, so, and I'm going to do something I wouldn't necessarily recommend here next, just because it's quite gross. But just for the sake of time, and I don't have anything else sitting next to me, we're going to do this. I'm going to use my soldering iron to poke a hole through my plastic. Again, wouldn't really recommend doing that with plastic. It's kind of nasty, probably pretty toxic, but get a nice little hole there. Get that plastic off your soldering tip. Probably get some solder back on that tip again, just because melting plastic on there just kind of messes up your tip a little bit. So get some solder back melted on there. Now we've got that hole. Black or negative can run through there, and then our positive coming from our switch can come through there as well, if you can manage to get it through there. There we go. And kit also comes one more longer piece of heat shrink just to kind of bring right up to that point there. All right, and now go ahead and just trim these a little bit. You can kind of sit or play with your battery and how you want that to sit in there, how long you want those to be, but the length that it comes is usually pretty good, but a little bit of trimming. All right, so now these are just going to go straight to our LiPo. I've got really cheap little helping hands, but they do the trick. All right, make sure you flash that on screen. Pre-tin these. I don't know if you guys can see it, that I do have a rather large tip on there right now. Just need to hold the heat really well, especially this thicker gauge wiring and the lead-free solder, which sucks, but lead-free, so probably a good thing to have. All right, now we are ready for our XT60 connector, which I have put somewhere in just a second. Oops, sorry, bounced you guys all over the place again. All right. So you can kind of use the female end in here just for melting things. And go back to our little helping hand guy. Just get a little bit of solder. Both sides. Oops. One more last little piece, so the shorter and the got like that 1/4 inch or so, just to kind of pinch those together. It's not really necessary, it's just kind of a thing to keep it bundled together a little bit more nicely, I suppose. And then we'll have a couple of these smaller, like 4mm heat shrink chunks in there for you. There's actually a couple of little, be enough in there so you can get a little bit of heat shrink on your ends when you go around your motor. Right here, just to solidify that. And so, let's just go ahead and get this on here. Red, positive, also the square end of there. And I don't really have any problems. We're just going to use the female to make sure we don't melt anything and push anything out of alignment. All right. So there's our positive heat shrink. Negative. Don't you love when you're doing this and solder something, you go, oh, I just forgot to put my heat shrink on there. Get that to solidify real good. Alright, get that in there. Sweet. And again, just that to kind of bundle it up a little bit if you want to. Not necessary, just something you can do if you choose to. Now, let's see, where did, all right. Just put a couple of these on here just so that we can see how that works. Now, if you look at the back of our little rev switch cover plate, we've removed a little bit of plastic, and really that's just to give clearance to the switch. And there's kind of like a little, there's like a little tab here typically. It just kind of helps with alignment on here when it's a stock one. So we have gotten rid of that just so that we're not getting tied up on anything. And just use that to, not that like it's going to go anywhere, but it fits, so we might as well keep it. All right, so sweet, nice and clicky there, which is always good to see. Now we've also got the other part of the out of darts kit, which goes on our firing switch, and depending on, seems like which color you get will kind of depend on how well or how tight this is on there. Basically being flush with the end of this little portion here, but you just want to kind of place that in there just to see how that fits up against here, but that's usually right on, so we're going to go ahead with that. A little bit of glue, you know, epoxy, super glue, whatever it is that you want to kind of hold that in place with. You can do whatever you feel like on that one. If I feel like smelling PLA just a little bit, you kind of use my soldering iron again. I know, once again, not good, but kind of melt it to the plastic here just because really. It's quick and easy and doesn't need to dry. Make sure we get our spring back on there. And that should drop right in. Hold that. So, see again, those wires just run right under there and get tucked out of the way nicely. just a real quick note while I had screwdriver on my mind. When you are taking this apart, just take note. So kind of see this is our trigger here. This screw hole, and then this one up on the front bottom right here, all have much longer screws in them, and sometimes strip out much more easily than the other screws, and they're quite annoying. Even being careful, sometimes you can strip those out. So pull that out, and you know, if you want to use a lower voltage battery to test, you know, please do so. It's always good to do that instead of going right to our LiPo, but that's what I've got sitting here. So we're gonna make a little bit of noise and check our flywheels. So flywheels are going in the right direction. And let's go ahead and test our, so you can see our belt in there. Go ahead and test this. Alright, so yeah, everything is working there as it should. So I'm going to go ahead and get this buttoned up off camera, but just to kind of go back again to where everything is at on this. The longest black wire, front portion of our flywheels here, longest black wire, right? Longest red wire, front of our flywheels. And then if we look down in here, negative off of this battery, or off this motor, is the one closest to you. The positive is down here. This one I did replace, but I put it in the same configuration as the stock one was. All right. So the negative comes through here, connects with the black wire off of our feeder motor, and then it also connects off of the black wire off of our firing switch here, which is the normally closed pole of this wire. The positive off of the feeder motor back around comes to common of our switch here. And then the positive, the positive, which is the normally open of our switch, that comes down and attaches into the positive off of our flywheels. And then the wire from the flywheels back down to our switch. All right. And then, you know, just that regular positive from the switch back around to the battery. And that really just gets all of it there. You know, we've walked through it pretty quickly, but hopefully that was pretty simple for all of you guys. You know, if you do need to check out soldering, there's lots of other people that talk about soldering a whole lot. So if you do feel like you need some help with, you know, soldering technique or something like that, just do another search, because there's a ton of stuff out there. And I just wanted to keep this real quick, show you the wiring and just how I typically do this. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope this was really helpful, especially for those of you that are buying my little kit. Hopefully that explains everything really well for you. If you do have any questions, just let me know, either through Etsy or, you know, in this video here. So anyway, good luck, everybody. I hope all of your Nemesis wires go amazing and you have a LiPo-powered Nemesis in no time. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.